I'm going to tell you a bit about the research we did around the FOLM project, yet I'll pick on first and to connect to what Pete said and some of the things you heard in the video now as well. Let's look at some of the challenges of the 21st century that we're trying to respond to. And Pete has mentioned a few of them, so I don't have to go into depth. There's the climate crisis, imbalances of power, of wealth, distribution of wealth, access to resources. There's conflicts of all kinds of levels, from personal to societal and global, including wicked problems, as Pete mentioned, that are so complex that there's no simple and straightforward answer or solution to them. And then certain life living in this time of uncertainty of what's going to happen, again, to us as individuals and to societies, and there are others. And the question then is, okay, so that's there and that's overwhelming, and it can be really frustrating, as we've just seen as well. So what are competencies that help us to navigate life in this day and age and to navigate these challenges of the 21st century? And so what we need there are transferable skills and competencies. Skills are more specific and tangible, and competencies are the overarching and complex ones. And those have to be ones that are transferable to a wide range of contexts. So it can't just be for work or for personal life relationships or for the areas of citizenship. It has competencies and skills that are really transformative and transferable to different areas of life. They have to be accessible and relevant to all demographics, not just people and businesses or certain genders or any other demographic criteria, but for everybody really, and also across our full adult lifespan. And the search for, well, what are those competencies and skills? We don't have to do that because others have already done that. There's several frameworks that look at these competencies, and here are just two that are fairly similar. One called them transformative competencies, that's by the OECD, and the UNESCO call them transversal competencies. Again, they're quite similar. And the two maps are just the member state maps of these two organizations. So they're really global, a wide representation of countries, although the data that went into those frameworks don't include all those. Yet, you know, they're based on international research and looking at, okay, what kind of skills and competencies do we need to overcome those challenges? So here are some. So at some point I mapped those different frameworks and looked, okay, so where do they overlap? What do they all say we need? And these are the key things here. Teamwork. Now, teamwork is quite a broad term, and if, you know, we can look more closer at what does that mean in terms of looking out for others, developing strategies together, asking for help, offering help and support, and many other things. Reflective and critical thinking. That means self-reflection. That means critical of others and those issues, and to keep challenging them and us. To take responsibility for ourselves in terms of health and our roles and our responsibilities, responsibility for a shared goal, for our community, and that always includes a more than human, wider community globally on this planet. And openness, flexibility, creativity, which is, you know, goes in line with the problem solving and finding solutions and developing ways. And then there are others as well. So to show these are not just for employability or for managing private relationships. There's a saying these are for a successful life and for well-functioning societies. And again, that means not just human societies, but more than humans. So if we say, right, this is what we want to achieve, these are the skills and competencies that we want people to have. Then the question is, well, how do we help people to develop these? And of course, there's many ways. Here and now, we're talking about outdoor learning, and outdoor learning is very well equipped to do that. There's a lot of research, and here I'll say outdoor education, because there's overlaps and differences that I don't need to go in at the moment. So of decades of research in outdoor education, from different countries. These are some of the things that are repeatedly reported that outdoor learning programs have helped the participants to develop. Generally speaking, socio-emotional skills, for example, pro-social behavior. So you have some elements of the teamwork, all sorts of other elements of teamwork as well. Like I said, asking for help, taking roles, and sharing responsibilities, collaboration, problem solving, overcoming challenges and finding out how, and being more creative in how to do that, more resourceful. Frustration tolerance. Being outdoors is not always fun, yet part of being faced with that, whether that's poor weather or whether that's heavy gear or whether that is frustration that the wind is not helping with setting up tents or starting a fire or whatever it is, overcoming those adverse situations is a core part in growing from that and feeling confident and feeling competent and taking that forward. So many studies reporting on positive self-concept, and that is not being completely overconfident, yet it means that we have a realistic and healthy idea of what we can do, and that's valuable, that we're valuable, and that we can make valuable contributions to the community and towards what we want to achieve. So there's that self-efficacy and locus of control. There's a technical terms. They both mean that we have a sense of agency, that we have some control over our environment and that our actions can impact our situations, our environment, and that through that we can shape our path, what happens to us, the decisions we make, and our future lives in a small and in a wider sense as well. And lots of elements around leadership, and that includes leadership of others and also leadership of oneself. So elements of self-management, of understanding our strengths and weaknesses and so forth, and others. So, oh, wait, sorry, did I move forward? Okay. So there's a big question then, how does outdoor learning achieve that? And again, I could draw on all the research that's out there in the wide field, yet I'd like to show you some of what we found out in that project from Outdoors to Labour Market. And so there's a website and a link for those who aren't familiar with that. And I also say a few sentences if you haven't been part of the project or aware of it, just to have an idea of what kind of outdoor learning we're talking about here, what kind of project. So it was 3.5 years, and it's just coming to an end nowish. It was funded, as Mike already said, by the EEA and Norway Grants for youth employment. It uses an outdoor learning, OL is outdoor learning. So it uses a model that's developed here in Scotland, primarily by the Venture Trust, in collaboration also then with the University of Edinburgh. And it's been trialed and tested by the Venture Trust over decades, really, and refined and used with different population groups. And this model has been implemented and adapted in different European countries, specifically in Ireland, Poland, and Spain, with a total of roughly 990 participants, with an age bracket of 18 years to 29 years. And underneath you have the partners here, and the partners are also listed at the end of this presentation. So that outdoor learning model that's underlying this, just so you have an understanding of what the program looks like. Here, you have a process that has 3 main phases. There's a preparation. The first and the third phase are in the community, in the home environment of the participants, or somewhere similar. And that middle one, the exploration, that's the outdoor learning phase. So the first one is about getting them ready, setting goals and building relationships for them to understand that they're being supported throughout the entire process. Then they're in the outdoors, there's nature engagement, there's a journey, which is a personal journey, and then there's also a transitioning through the landscape. And a key aspect is that they're being remote from their home environment, which helps to shed expectations, roles, and that being connected often to social media and other influences that are necessarily helpful for self-reflection for growth. And then the back and the reintegration is about consolidating the learning and transferring that to work, life, different contexts. That all the process is in a setting of a nurturing growth for nurturing setting for growth, which means there's some facilitation that makes people feel safe and supported and feel able to open up and face challenges and challenge themselves and grow beyond themselves. And then there are other elements like combining group work and one-to-one and daily themes and sessions throughout the course. So if you look at the 3 phases, here's how they were adapted in FOLM. The preparation phase was really short, partially even non-existent, where the first face-to-face meeting that participants had was the first day of that outdoor learning phase. And the third phase was actually split formally into two, the coaching with group sessions and further input, and the mentoring, which was monthly check-ins and kind of petering out of the support at the end. And a new element is a job matching platform where participants were connected with potential employers, and there was specific input and training towards employability with CV writing skills, job interview training, and so forth. And the primary purpose of this project was employability, in addition to the transformative and transferrable competencies. Good. So having set that scene, the research objectives in FOLM were to evaluate to what degree the project is effective in promoting employability and transformative competencies. Then also to look at, well, what were the factors that enabled that and what were factors that hindered that. And that's in FOLM specifically, and also to deepen our understanding about outdoor learning in a wider sense. And finally, we had a lot of small feedback loops that were intentional throughout the project to feedback preliminary findings immediately so they can be used and implemented. And we did see that that was really helpful as well. For example, in integrating the phases in the project, at first they were quite separate, and we saw that that caused ruptures in participant learning and in the relationship building. And then we took measures to integrate that better, and we did see progress and the benefits of that even within the project. The research methods, well, it was a combination of really whole range, and this is just a selection. There were qualitative and quantitative methods that we used. As quantitative method, we devised a questionnaire on self-concept and that sense of agency that I mentioned, and participants filled that in at 5 points of time. So we could see whether there was a development over time. Then others, we did interviews with the participants, with the staff that were working directly with the participants, and with the leadership and administrative level. So really catching all perspectives. And there were various online surveys, particularly with staff on a range of aspects. We had personal files that were one for each participant that was handed on among staff so that the information that we gained on participants was passed on, and they wouldn't have to tell their story again, just to make sure they're being supported throughout the project in one smooth process. A range of evaluation forums at different points of the project, and a gamification tool that one of the Spanish partners, FEMSHA, designed and developed at the start, and that was actually a beautiful piece they've done there. I want to mention the evaluation forums were primarily developed and administered by TUS, one of the Irish partners, actually the Irish partner. So data sources, I already mentioned, we have participants that we interviewed and that contribute to other data points. Then the people who worked in the program directly with the participants, the leadership staff, and to a smaller degree, other stakeholders, for example, employers business partners, referral agencies, and parents. Unfortunately, only a small amount of that. There was an intention to extend the project and focus more on that. Unfortunately, that did not receive funding. So with those different methods and different data sources, we were able to create a 360-degree perspective. That's what it's called when you generate the views and collect the views of basically all who are involved, and a triangulation of the different methods of the data. So every data method has blind spots or has limitations, and with a combination, we could look at the blind spots of each other and create really a whole and full picture, which is really exciting. So as a little caveat for the findings, because of delays in the delivery of the program due to COVID, we're still at the tail end of collecting last bits of data, and the analysis is full on in progress. However, there's already a lot that we can say about the data, the findings. And just to give you a rough idea of the data pool we're looking at, over 2,000 data points from the questionnaire, over 2,000 evaluation forms and other points, many hours of interviews conducted with people. So if we go back to that primary question that was an objective of the research, to say like, okay, so to what degree was the program and is the model effective in bringing people who were not, at the start of the project, were not in employment, not in educational training, into one of these paths. And so the 990 participants, here's the numbers where they moved on to. So once they've started the program, when they left the program, which could be at different points of time, to the left you see 1/3 of them went into employment. Some of them didn't even go through all phases. They just needed a little impulse and they went to employment. On the right hand here, half of them went into education, which is also fantastic success. And the middle part, the rest of 17%, are a mixture. Some of them are still applying for jobs. Some of those went into training situations. Some went into travels and did other things. And this also includes people who disengaged and disappeared from the project for whatever reason. So 83%, if we just take the ones on the left, went to employment and who went to education, that's 83%. So no matter how you turn that, that's really, really successful, and that's brilliant. Beyond that, if we look at, okay, what did people take away from this? Because it's not just about employment, it's also about these transferable skills that are, well, valuable for so much more. That again links back to what Pete said, and those challenges in the 21st century. It's not just about employment, it's about managing life and managing what we're facing here. So key things, and you already heard in that video just now that people were saying that, is that they were learning about themselves. They were given the space for self-reflection without being remote from their home contexts and all that entails, to look closer at who they are, who they wanted to be, what their strengths were. They were given respect and attention and developed a sense of self-worth and confidence about it. They developed new ways of, or they explored new aspects of themselves. And through the program, when they were in the outdoors, where everybody has different daily roles and chores, they were also forced and guided into trying out new things and realizing that they had talents that they weren't aware of, getting feedback on that. So you see, these are in a way connected. So that learning about oneself, getting a sense of self-worth and a confidence about that, and through that, of understanding what they wanted, what they felt was important, setting goals for what they wanted to achieve and the motivation to do that as well. And also specific skills in terms of communication, teamwork, and in terms of employability, like I said, CV writing and job interviews. So quickly, because that was the main quantitative method here, that was based on standardized tools around self-concept and sense of agency, complete at 5 points of time, although the later points we had a lot less data points to build on. Particularly over the outdoor learning phase, we saw statistically significant increase in both positive self-concept and sense of agency. So that's brilliant. Again, main areas of learning and growth. The top ones are the ones already mentioned, and also a key part that nature connectedness. So finding that valuable that they were outdoors and finding joy in outer activities. And through that, we know that nature connectedness is a contributor to stewardship and environmental sustainability, environmentally responsible behavior, and yeah. So again, all of these are super valuable, not just for employability, but also for their personal lives, for their personal well-being, and for citizenship, again, in a human, social, as well as more than human. Here's a quote that I think is beautiful, and I'll also read it out to you. When staff were asked the kind of change they saw of participants before and after the program, one outdoor learning trainer said, was like a process from being passive to being active, from being hopeless to the situation that they can see, okay, I have an option in my life and I have some open doors here. From being hesitant and withdrawn to making a decision to feel like I have enough power to change my life. From being close to being open, and from being alone or feeling that they are alone to start to feel that we're together and that they can create something together, even if in that outer context, it's as simple as cooking a meal together. So that sense of I have impact, I have meaning, and the trainer said it was really fantastic to be part of that process on the individual and group level. So looking at what are the factors that contributed to that made that happen, well, a key part is being outdoors, that engagement with nature, those physical and social emotional, the experience, the holistic experience, and also the challenges that came with that, and the remoteness that I mentioned. Also, the relationships within the group, among the peers, and also of the staff and the participants, where participants said, I was being respected, I was listened to, I was given attention, I was supported. So it's person-centered, it's trust-based. And a really valuable element is, it's not that just the participants who do the outdoor experience and who go through the rain and carry that kit, that the staff do exactly the same, and that they're companions in that experience, as in they go through the same situation. And that is a really, really powerful part of that process. Then the whole range of those facilitation elements in the model of group work and one-to-one, a combination of that's a safe space that is intentionally and deliberately created, and lots of micro-learning, as in setting up a fire. Well, they won't need to be able to set up a campfire when they're in a job or at home in their living room. However, to set up a fire, you need to plan your steps, you need to prepare your material, you need to do a little risk assessment, you need to follow instructions and so forth to then be successful. And all of these also apply to those other contexts. So there's a lot of that micro learning where I learn by setting up a tent I can use for something else as well. End of tense. And also the combination and integration of the phases. So if they've just done the outdoor experience and then went home, then they wouldn't have been able to transfer that and get the support to really consolidate their learning and to turn that into personal ways forward. So the goal setting and helping them to develop steps towards achieving those goals in their own home context. What are some of the challenges and the barriers to success in the project? The recruitment, massively so in all regions. So the access to the participants, the potential participants. It was a new project. As you said, hey, join FOLM, nobody knew what that meant. So creating a brand and that being carried out for people to join the project and communicating what exactly this is about. So we had some jokes that people thought it was a sect, like what you're paying me to go on this outdoor adventure thing, where you know, I don't have to pay for that. What is this about? This is weird, especially in countries where outdoor learning is not as established as it is in the UK or in Ireland, for example. It was also tricky to set up the program delivery, just with stuff with recruiting and training staff, getting the equipment, all the logistics of access to land, sorting that, creating procedures and documents, and all of that. The setting up was a huge, you use a lot of time and energy. Once it was set up, it was running a lot more smoothly, which is interesting for people in other regions who might think about taking this up. Yeah, to take that, once it's set up, it's really effective. And needless to say, the COVID pandemic had impact in terms of moving the coaching phase online, and in Ireland, moving from an expedition of several days to day and place-based. And we saw not just disadvantages, but also advantages in that, for example, in being more inclusive to people who would not have been able to participate in a full week-long expedition. We had some regional adaptations. Like I said, the model was supposed to be adapted, and that happened. It was most effective and successful where that adaptation happened in response to the regional needs, to the resources that were available, and to the existing infrastructure in terms of referral agencies, in terms of employers, and all the structures that were there. Also, where it focused on individual growth rather than this is a project, we have to show the numbers, we have to bring people into employment, but really this is about every single individual and to see how they can get as much as possible out of it. And I think that's really been done in all the regions, and the success that we see speaks absolutely for that. And where the public sector collaborated with the project delivery partners, particularly in Spain, we had that where the Cantabria, the regional government, is one of the partners that's been hugely successful in terms of bringing participants into the program, as well as supporting them onwards and bringing them into employment and training. So just some lessons learned there. In terms of long-term effect, with limited data, we do see that the participants, the growth that they had during the program was so impactful that they were able to continue that. Yeah, that self-discovery was just so deep learning that went on. And again, the coaching and mentoring has been crucial for that to not just be a wow experience that is then in that distinct outdoor learning bubble, but that can be integrated into their regular lives. We looked a bit at who benefited most from the program, and I'll just pick out these three. And looking at the time, I'll rush a bit maybe. So gender, we asked specifically about gender, about whether people saw differences in persons of different genders and how they engaged with the program. And the responses showed that there were different levels of awareness of underlying discourses around expectations towards genders and how they were perceived and opportunities they had, and we're still exploring more of that at the moment, so that's a good thing. A lot of people said, well, I don't know if there were differences between genders. The personal factors that everybody brought in as an individual were more relevant than that, and also that age was more relevant, and I come to that in a second. People who said, yes, I've seen differences, that was specifically in young male and female, so there wasn't a lot about persons of other genders. So that young males predominantly seem to come for the fun and the adventure, versus females who already came focused, who are willing to change and who are motivated, and they came for a development program, while so the male participants were there for the fun. No, that's a generalization that doesn't apply to all, obviously, yet where people said, yes, I've seen a difference, this is what they pointed to. And then that element of, that was the start of the program. When they came, we saw these differences. Over the course of the program, the program offered them a space where they could overcome those societal expectations and roles, for example, through those daily changing roles where they were pushed into doing something that did not fit with the societal or parental expectations, and they were given that opportunity to find out and or to see and to demonstrate that they were really good at that, which helped them to set goals and to refine what they wanted to, where they wanted their lives to go after the program. In terms of age, so several people said, yes, actually there was differences between those top and bottom sides of that age bracket between 18 years and 29 years, where people with more complex life experiences, and that can also be prior in their childhood, but where people had more of that, they were already coming with more self-reflective and ready for change because they knew what they wanted to get away from. And that younger people seem to be more interested in that adventure than working on themselves. And we saw that in the coaching, that some of them disengaged because the outdoor was fun and it was engaging and they took a lot from that, yet the coaching was again, back to much school-based stuff that they didn't like as much. And also that the age diversity and diversity in general benefited all, where they could learn from each other and see different reactions, different life paths and experiences modeled. And as final element, people with additional support needs, and that's really wide. Somebody already mentioned trauma. It can be all kinds of different life experiences, or it can be physical support needs, or with mental health. And for quite a number of participants, so this project was primarily about employment, yet for quite a lot, they weren't there yet. They needed something more fundamental for their life to get more stability and to sort some more basic things. And the project did offer them that opportunity. So they did move towards employment, although they weren't at the point where they could apply for a job, hold a job. Already mentioned the Irish model that due to COVID moved to a day-based model and place-based, and we saw that was more inclusive for people who wouldn't have been able to join a week-long expedition. And in general, outdoor learning just offers different ways of engaging and learning and participation than classroom-based learning. So for all people who struggled with that classical school learning, they had an opportunity and they benefited from this in particular. So looking at so who benefited most? So pretty much everybody agreed everybody can benefit from outdoor learning and from this program, where it was tailored to specific individual needs, where their needs were met, then people benefited more, and people who were at a point where they were ready and motivated to change. So that's valuable to take forward. So key insights gained. The program was highly successful and the underlying model works, which Venture Trust will now be like, yeah, we do that. So that's brilliant. Successful in bringing people into employment, education and training, and in promoting these transferable skills and competencies. Adaptations in those different regions and to different populations and needs, they're possible, and they're also required if we want the ideal outcome for each individual participant and the former members. And while we had the public support and the integration into existing infrastructure, that was a key booster to the effect and the impact of the program. And then just finally, an outlook on the sustainability. So the expertise and the practical experience are there, they're readily available. If anybody wants to pick this up, it's all there, it can be done. There's several spin-out projects and initiatives in different countries, and Joanna, who will speak later, will probably point to some of these. And longer term funding and integration into, again, existing infrastructures are needed for sustainability of the program. And that's what I'd like to end with. Here again, the participants, they're at the core of this. And you'll hear some of them speak later as well. So thank you. Here's your full consortium. All partners have contributed to the data collection of this. So thank you very much to all of that. And again, the funder, and we deeply appreciate the funding we've received. The resources, they'll be made available, and thank you.